Hello everybody, I'm Live Action, and I got my I got my buddy Harold here, and today we're looking at the 44 rules of D&D. And yes, I know I am far behind everyone else when it comes to this topic. Yes, I know this probably won't get as many views, and yes, I know that I am way behind. Stuff has gone on, and I needed to do stuff like school and stuff like that. But today we're looking at the 44 rules of D&D. Now, I have read about the first 20 of them, and I have a lot to say, and I really wanted to give my own opinion on this. What I'm going to be talking about is a lot with my own personal experience with D&D and stuff of that sort. So, prepare for that. So, let's get started. The 44 rules of D&D. 1. I am timing turns. I don't give a fuck if it's unfair in your opinion because your spells are hard or you just don't know what square to move to. You get 1 minute to know all your actions, and then all the actions you want, then I skip your turn. Now, this can be done right, but that's a maybe. Because timing turns, like, you don't want someone to take a 10-minute turn. Because if you do, it kind of like slows down the game, it makes the combat less fun and stuff like that. But what I'm saying is that 1 minute to do everything you want to do is kind of strict. It's very hard to choose what to do, especially if you're a more complicated class like a wizard or cleric. Because if you do, it's going to be causing you to be backed up. It's going to cause you to screw up on what you want to do and what you want to see. And I'm going to... He keeps almost falling out. There we go. But what I'm saying is that with this, timing turns can be done right, but the way you're doing it is not right. It's going to cause lots of stress at the table. People won't know what to do. People's turns are going to get skipped. They're not going to have fun. It's going to be a whole deal that you're going to have to deal with. It's causing more problems than it's solving. 2. If you want harder fights, bring a second character sheet and expect to twiddle your thumbs when you die. I'm not going to baby anyone. You're just being a dick. You're just being a dick with that one, man. Like, seriously. Like, I get wanting harder fights, because sometimes fights are not as hard as they should be. I make that mistake all the time. I usually make my fights too weak or too hard, depending on the CR of the creature. Like, sometimes the characters in my D&D games that I'm running, sometimes when they fight people who are like a CR, that is their CR. Like, for every 4-player party, the CR is 1. And then if for every level they go up, the CR goes up. So, like, 4 level 4 adventurers would have a CR of 4. 1 CR4 creature could face all of them, and it'd be a moderate challenge. At least that's from my understanding of how the CR system works. So sometimes I put my party, if they're level 4, I'm putting them up against the CR of 4, and they completely wipe it. Like, they just... and they get rid of it easy. But if I give them a CR5, they get close to death. And it's hard to kind of find that balance depending on the creature that you're facing up against. Now, I'm going to say that, bringing a second character sheet isn't a terrible idea, like if your character ever dies or if you ever have a backup character idea, but having them just twiddle their thumb there and do nothing is kind of a jerk thing to do. You want people to be involved in your D&D game. You want them to be able to feel like, hey, I did something this time, or hey, I did something that really, really put impact into the fight. And if you just let them sit there twiddling their thumbs, what do you expect them to do? You expect them to sit there and enjoy it? No, their character just died. What do you expect them to do? They're going to be sad. But you could give them that triumphant moment of their new character jumping in and saving the day. But no, you just want to be a prick about it. Like, seriously. If you call me or my roles unfair, I will get up and go home. If you have a ride with me, you can find your own way back and suck it up. Do you want friends? If you do not act like this DM. Like, seriously, what I'm saying here and what I'm saying now is that this is a terrible way to treat people. Like, I understand, like, sometimes, things feel unfair. And even my players can attest. Like, I'm pretty sure one of them might even comment in the comments saying, like, oh yeah, Stone does not fudge his dice rolls because if he does, he is really good at hiding it. But the thing is, I do not fudge my dice rolls. I refuse to do that. I'm a very honest person when it comes to that. Because I want the game to be organic. I want the game to feel real. I want to feel like, oh, something could happen in a triumphant moment for the party when the enemy rolls a natural 1 on their attack and they hurt themselves and it gives them just the boost they need to win the day. I want them to have that triumphant moment. I want them to have that moment in the game where they feel like the dice were on their side. But they also need to understand that there is an opposing side to that coin, where it's not always going to be on their side. They're going to get crit every now and again. They're going to feel like their dice rolls are unfair. Bitch. But that's just a feeling that they get. That shouldn't dictate the entire course of the game night. Because if you let that happen, you're just being easily swayed by the dice. And it's not a good thing to do, because it just makes you look weak and it makes you look pitiful. And I would not want to ride home with you after that kind of conversation. Like someone just says, oh, your dice roll was unfair. I'm going home. 4. I'm going to take your character's loot away as regularly as I give it out. Rule 3 applies here. What is this, a trade mechanic? I don't understand what the point of this is. The point of D&D, or at least in some aspect, is to gain loot from the things you fight and gain more over time. Your characters are meant to get stronger over time with the loot that they gain and the levels that they also build up. The thing is that when it comes to taking away loot, it feels like that, oh, I got this awesome sword, but oh, I'm probably going to lose it next level when we get something cool. Because that just makes it feel like it's an exchange rather than it's something they actually earned. That's not how you do loot. You can do loot that way, but it seems that would be for more like a Dark Souls approach type of game, not this. And yes, it could be seen as unfair, because someone who really likes their loot and who wants to stick to it, but also get a loot for a separate other reason, like, oh, this fighter was like, oh hey, I got this cool Sword of Flame, but I don't want to trade my Sword of Flame for a Cloak of Flying. Like, that's the kind of situation you're going to get yourself into, where people are just going to start denying the loot you give them. And that's probably going to make you mad, because you're the kind of person, from what I can tell from writing this thus far, that if you give the player something and they don't want it, you're going to be pissed at them too. Like, that's just kind of how the game works. 5. If you don't act out your persuasion or intimidation or any other social checks, you will fail before you even roll. You fail immediately because you aren't even trying. You're making the game lame for everyone else. Not everyone is an actor. Not everybody is going to have drama class level skills when it comes to roleplay. Like, I went through drama classes in high school, I did singing lessons, I did all of that. And even then, I still struggle sometimes when it comes to RP, because I don't know what my character would do next. I need time to think on it. And if you're trying to persuade someone, like saying like, oh hey, I want to persuade the shopkeep to give me like a small discount of like 5 gold pieces. You don't want them to have to go like, oh yeah, I'm going to say like, oh, I'll put in a good word, or I'll do something or some other, because that'll just slow down the game and make it very unfun. Especially, it might stress some people out who aren't as who are newer to the hobby. It might just stress out people who are newer to the hobby and not want them to be involved. They might not want to be involved because they feel like they're forced to RP when they aren't ready yet. Like, let's say a new player decide to play a bard, and they decide, all right, I want to make a persuasion check or an intimidation check. What do you expect them to do for an intimidation check? You expect them to stand up and bulk up and just go like, I want a discount. No, dude, not everything needs to be acted out. If it did, it would slow down the game immensely. 6. If you don't pick up cues for side quests, that's not my problem. Get over yourself. It's not a video game. It's a role and pen and paper based game with miniatures. I'm not holding your hand if you choose not to pursue shit. That's why you have to give them proper leads. You gotta give them reasons to do what they're doing. One thing I have learned in my current D&D game is that if you're having like people go through several different quest lines at a time, you got to be able to remind them of what's available, because if not, they're going to get confused. They're going to try to figure out what they want to do first, and that can take up a whole session if you're not careful. It's happened to me before. But what I'm saying is that if you don't give them solid through lines to get quests, even if they're side quests, then you're not going to get those side quests done. You're not going to make them be done. You're not going to have them be finished or even partially completed because you're not giving them the initiative to do that. You need to give players initiative to do certain quest lines, even if they're side quests. Because if not, what's the reason to do them? Gold? Sure. Silver? Yeah, maybe an item. They don't know that. They don't know that because it's a side quest you haven't fully developed yet. You need to develop it for your players before you give it out to them. 7. If you move to a square in combat, there is no takebacks. What is this, Baldur's Gate? Like, dude, this isn't Baldur's Gate. This is a pen and paper game, as you yourself said. Mistakes can happen and you can change it up. Because, like, if I go like, oh wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh wait, that's not the way I wanted to go. 4, 3. If you say like, oh, you can't do that. This isn't chess rules, man. This is a pen and paper game where you're trying to figure out where you want to do at all times. And it's something that it's not something that you should just do. If you move to a square, there are no takebacks. No, there should be takebacks. Because if you make a mistake and you don't do what you want to do because of the way that it turned out, then maybe you should just not do that. 8. You tell every single person what you're doing before you do it. Do not fucking roll dice and then say you're casting Fireball. You tell us all. That one I can understand a little bit, but you're coming off a bit aggressive, my friend. Now, let me say this, that a lot of people will say like, oh, they roll and go like, I would like to roll for Persuasion, or I would like to roll for Stealth. Most of the time, I'm going to say that most of the time when it comes to a DM, the DM has to tell you before you roll. Like, if you're very familiar with the DM and you're expecting what they're going to ask you to roll for, then maybe you can get away with that, but that really depends on the DM and your closeness, as well as the whole, like, if they're okay with it sort of thing. Now, I also understand, like, also you don't roll to cast Fireball. You roll dice to deal damage, but everyone else has to roll a dexterity saving throw. That's not how the spell works. I will give off exhaustion more frequently. If you argue, go home, or you can actually fight me over it, or you can DM yourself. This guy is just completely confrontational. Like, dude, no one's gonna fight you over a fucking D&D game. That's not how shit works. I've seen people get close to that, but that doesn't really... That just shows how immature you are. To say like, oh hey, I'm going to fight you over my rulings in D&D. That shows that I am superior. No, dude, come on. That's not how... You shouldn't be playing a game to be confrontational. You should be playing a game to have fun. That's what D&D is supposed to be. That isn't... You are making it... You're trying to make a D&D into more of a blood sport than anything else. Like a hardcore game. And sure, games like that exist. Go find one. But it's obviously it's not what your players want. If they're bringing up all these complaints to you. Every snide comment you make to an NPC will be remembered and paid back in triplicate. You seem to believe there are little consequences. That one, again, I can kind of understand, but that only means if they're saying it in character. If they're saying it out of character for funsies, then yeah, they can say it as much as they want, because they're not saying it in character. If they somehow see past the veil of player-character dynamic, and they can hear the insults, then I think they might be a more powerful NPC than a fucking shopkeep. But also, paying stuff back in triplicate is a little intense, and I do feel like if someone goes like, oh hey, you're fat, you don't just go, Fireball! You don't do that. No, dude, come on. Grow up. You will not be given 11. You will not be given a mega dungeon every session. A temple isn't the size of a small city, neither is a cave. This shit will happen as natural and organic. Go play a roguelike if you want that. You can go play a roguelike if you want, but not every place is going to be small. You can use that argument against yourself. Like, what I'm saying is, like, every temple most likely has a basement. Every shop technically has an upper loft or something that holds extra storage. There's a bunch of other stuff you could do with something to make it interesting. And if the players think they want to do something, this is my tip. Here's my tip for D&D. If you're able to, yes and. Because if you do, the players will feel smart when it comes to what they discovered. I've had a character, I was running a one-shot before, and there was this guy who was like, I want to see if this temple has any hidden rooms. He rolled really high, and originally in this module that I was playing, it didn't have any like special rooms or anything like that. But he rolled high, and he was so excited. So you know what? I gave him a secret basement. A secret basement that held secret rites of the temple. That is the kind of stuff you give them. You give them intrigue. You give them something that they can, like, snack upon so that they can be interested in your world and see what they can see. Yes, every temple is not going to be the size of a small city, but you can make it so that the temple is interesting. There are a lot of things you can do to make your game interesting, and you are just cutting it short with these rules that you are making. Your travel portion is done. You want to travel continents doing literally whatever you want. Whenever you want, go play World of Warcraft and play D&D with AI. Don't play D&D with AI. I would like to keep my job, thank you. I know I don't actually get paid for running a Dungeons & Dragons game, don't get me wrong. But travel portions are an important part of D&D because there are long stretches of time in between the big events in D&D that people have to travel, move around, or go across a large city or even a large continent. There's a lot of things you might have to do in a D&D game that require travel. And it is an important experience in D&D to travel. You can have people like live out their backstories while playing by the campfire. You can have them have small talk or let them characters roleplay during the traveling. There's a lot of things you can do with travel. You just got to be creative enough to deal with it. You got to be creative enough to actually let that happen. Lots of times I do skip over travel because it's what my party wants to do, or they do not have much an idea to RP at the moment. And if they have an idea to RP that later, we can always travel more. There's always something you can do. But you got to be able to decide, is traveling going to be the main focus of my campaign, or is traveling going to be a small aspect? That's the choice you need to make. It doesn't mean you need to go play World of Warcraft or play D&D with AI. If you are late with no good reason, I'm going to have your character's hit points for the entire session. Dude, you're being a dick. Like, seriously, what's the point of that? Oh yes, I'm going to make your character less effective for only being like a minute or two late. Dude, life happens. D&D is not the all end all say all. Like, yeah, D&D is important to me because I like interacting with people. I like doing my own thing. But it's not the end all be all. If I have to cancel a D&D session, yes, I'll be sad, but it doesn't mean that I need to punish players for not making it, or at least not being on time. That is a very strict and very rough way of playing D&D. That sounds like something like, I've never played Vampire the Masquerade, but it sounds like something a DM who's really into Vampire the Masquerade would do. It's just really selfish, and not really selfish, it's a dick thing to do, honestly. If you don't show up for no good reason, and that will be determined by me alone and no one else who has the guts to say shit for the fear of upsetting one another, the first time you find yourself either losing a whole level or up to 3 major items you own. The second time you do in a row, you'll be moved from the chat and the group full stop. I have no fucking time for people who will not show up. Again, life happens. You can't just say like, oh yeah, my grandpa died, I guess I'm going to be losing everything in D&D, I'm going to lose my entire social circle. Dude, do you have any idea how much stress that puts on the people? Oh yeah, by the way, baby, I'm recording something for the Darkness&Dragons channels right now. Do you want to say hi? Say hello to the microphone. Say hello, everybody. It's my girlfriend.
Hello.
Hello, baby. I love you.
Love you too.
I'm going over the 44 rules of D&D.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I'll look it up. It's terrible.
Isn't that Reddit was so horrific.
Yeah, and then I didn't get a chance to do it.
You masochist.
Alright, I'm gonna continue doing that, and then I'm gonna message you back, okay?
Okay, well, I'm out of class now.
Alright, then I'll try to make this quick.
Don't rush yourself too much, Lovey. I was just worried about you.
Alright, I love you.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.
I love that girl so much. I'm a nerd, I'm sorry. Alright, now back to, if you don't show up for no good reason, and dude, you don't get to decide if it's a good reason or not. Lots of the times, it's going to be something simple like, oh, I got called into work, which is a good reason, mind you. Or it's going to be like, oh, I just can't make it, I can't afford gas this week. If you say like, oh, then you probably should manage your money better, dude, you're just being a dick. D&D is not the end-all be-all, again. And I'm just going to say that's that. But if you're, like, subtracting people's levels or items because they can't fucking make it to games, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? If you get too stoned or drunk to play, I will go home without warning. Your warning is here. That one I kind of get. Because none of my players really drink or smoke. So that's nice. But if you're doing that and you're constantly having to take breaks or something like that, I'm just going to say straight up, just no. I came here to play D&D, not to take care of someone who's drunk. I will end the game if I need to, or at least send you home with a taxi or something, and then just continue playing without you. That's just like, don't come up drunk. Seriously. If you get it for a bong or smoke or whatever breaks every 10 minutes, I'll simply pack up and go home. I'm sick of waiting every bloke to show up at the table. Bloke! But seriously, what I'm saying here is this. When you do this, just don't. Like, yeah, if we're taking a break, you can go have a smoke or whatever the fuck you want. But if you're just having to leave every 10 minutes from the table, don't do that. You're wasting everyone else's time, and it's kind of selfish. Guidance, divination spells, owls, and whatever spell I decide are too fucking stupid or banned outright. No more fucking guidance. Guidance is a good spell, though. It's a good spell. Like, we've had this conversation before, like, there are some groups that ban spells like Silvery Barbs because they're just too powerful or something like that. And especially if you're playing with like a higher level party, some things might be banned. Like, oh yeah, I'm not going to let you power word kill my enemy right away. But I guess that's what they have legendary resistances for. But what I'm saying is that guidance is a good spell. Divination spells can be useful. And like, I've seen one player who actually is my girlfriend we were talking about earlier. She uses augury sometimes to figure out if it's going to be weal or woe. And she figures it out. And she uses divination spells in smart ways. So what I'm saying is that you can ban spells if they feel like they're too powerful. Like, I know some people who ban Fireball. I've seen people ban it. But what I'm saying is that you can ban spells, but not every spell of a certain school is going to be up for banning. You get one chance at a skill check. If you fuck up, your party doesn't get their chance to do the same check. Think careful of who's good at what. That just limits on who can do what. Like, if I'm playing, if we're all having the stealth. Like, if I'm the paladin, and I'm not good stealth, but I have to stealth to be able to enter a castle with the rogue, you think I'm going to not roll stealth and let the rogue do it? No, because it's my own stealth. Because, like, yeah, the rogue is very stealthy, but not me, who's in heavy plate armor. That's not how stuff works. That's not how the game works. You can say, like, oh yeah, I don't want them, like, everyone investigating, but everyone can look around the room and find different things in life. I've seen that happen. I've had a cup on my desk once before. I thought I didn't see it. But my mom was like, it's right here. And she found it immediately. Like, some people just don't see shit. And that's just how it works. That's how life works. Even in game, that's how it works. So limiting to one person can roll for one thing is just very restrictive. And I think it's a very dumb way to run it. Discussion of metagame details and game will result in instant damage to your character. Now that one's just funny. That one I've done before, just like 1 ping point of damage. That one is not too bad. That one is fine. It's stupid, but it's fine. I've seen people do it. Rules lowering fellow players is encouraged. Actually, me will just as smart and tell me telling you to fuck off. So, rules are other people, but not me. Rules for thee, but not for I. So they say. Dude, you're just putting yourself up on a pedestal. You just want to be worshipped at this point. I mean, seriously, what's the point? I mean, if you want to be worshipped so much, go start a cult or some shit. You roll your dice within the view of 2 players who aren't you standard. You roll them neatly and you roll them on the table. Failing to do so will result in auto-fail in whatever roll you did. Arguing that you actually rolled validly when you clearly didn't is automatic critical fail. Not everyone looks at people's dice when they roll, because they're busy focusing on their own dice roll. I mean, seriously. And I understand, like, to avoid cheating, rolling in front of other players. I get that. I honestly do. I've dealt with cheaters before. But what I'm saying is that when it comes to this specific thing, I would say that at least one person watching you would be fine and stuff like that. But I would try to trust my players. If you can't trust your players, why are you playing with them? Instant death traps and mechanics are coming into place. If you call these things unfair moving forward, I will laugh at you and tell you to fuck off and cry some more. Instant death is not fun. It's not. Oh yeah, I'm just moseying along my day. I fall into a pit trap and die. No, that's not fun. What do you mean instant death traps? Like, have you ever played Tomb of Horrors? Like, there's several places where your characters can just instantly die. And you think that's fun? No, then that player just has to sit there for the rest of the time. It's not fun. It's stupid. There's always got to be a chance, or at least something that would get them out of there. Like, even if you fall into a pit trap, into a room full of spikes, you can be revived and healed. It doesn't, most likely will not instantly kill you. I mean, have you seen the bamboo traps in Vietnam? I mean, seriously, like, you stick your foot in there and it gets caught, and yeah, you'll die of infection, but it won't kill you outright immediately. Some things will automatically kill you, like a giant rolling boulder or something similar. But you gotta find ways to get around those. Like, oh, I need to be able to run to the end of the hall, or something similar. You gotta give them ways out. I will not give you random magical items, and vendors will not stock them. They're meant to be rare and hard to acquire. See, this one I can get for a low magic fantasy setting. That one is understandable depending on the game you're playing. My D&D games tend to have magic shops because I want players to feel like they're having fun with the magic items they get. But what I'm saying is that this one is at least somewhat understandable. Random encounters in the form of random dragons or strange mysterious road traders and or a band of goblin prostitutes isn't going to happen. Go play Baldur's Gate 3. That's a video game. It's not fully randomized. I mean, seriously? Like, dude, seriously. Like, random encounters are the fun of traveling. They get to make stuff happen. They get to make the funny stories of like, oh yeah, a gnome just randomly fell out of the sky. Or, oh, there's this mountain village of dwarves mining for this rare metal that you're passing by. You gotta bring life to the world, man. If you don't, what are you doing? I don't give 2 fucks about what Reddit says about X or Y ruling. For someone who seems to care a lot about rules, you don't seem to care a lot about rules. I actually give less of a fuck about what you and your mates group did. Do you want to talk to your players, or do you just want them to play in your game so that you have someone to talk to? Like, this is sad. Saying anything to me about other players not liking me doing X or Y without them telling me directly will result in me kicking you out from the group. Don't use someone else as your own agenda. Some people are too shy to talk to you, and honestly, with the way you're talking to people, I can understand why. Like, dude, you're being a total tyrant right now, and we are just over halfway through the list. Like, dude, come on. I honestly think that you are just So hard to talk to. I can imagine someone might not have the guts to speak up to you, but that's just because not everybody is built the same way. Just, dude, listen to your players, honestly, and if you don't believe them, go talk to the other player. You're not going to sit down and have a 2-hour discussion about what Samson from Barracuda or Secondary or 3 weeks ago when you come to play. Take a 15 to 20 minute time I use the setup to review my notes, to talk to each other, then play and sit down. Things in conversation come up naturally. That's how things work. That's how conversation works. Like, oh, something funny happens in a D&D game, go like, oh yeah, that reminds me of this or that. That's what happens. You shouldn't have to police conversation in a D&D game. Yeah, you can say, all right, everybody, calm down, let's get back on topic if things get too out of hand. But you don't police talking. If you do, people are just going to sit around there quietly and not do anything. Saying shit like, guys, come on, we're here to not here to have fun, we're here to play D&D, this is serious business, is rude and dismissive of how much work I put into this. I'll simply go home if I hear this shit. You're making this game into a job, dude, by the rules you've already set in place. That's your fault as a DM. They feel like they have to take this seriously, like all the time, or else they're going to get kicked out, get left at the D&D table because they were your ride, or something else worse. That's your own fault.
Thought about killing myself.
Don't fucking order food randomly. We will eat together in a specific time or not at all. I do not want food shit all over my things. This one I can kind of get, like, if you order food, yeah, that's fine. But just try not to get into other people's stuff. That's fine. But this guy is kind of, 31. No food or drinks near my D&D gear. If you wreck something, you can pay for it. I let one person trash my DM screen once and never had it replaced by them. In fact, I had that person attempt to gaslight me into believing that they didn't wreck my shit after all. I'm not stupid, you're an adult. Accept responsibility. I can tell something bad happened to you and that's the reason why you're doing stuff like this, but dude, I get not wanting food near your D&D stuff, like if you don't want it near your DM screen because you're afraid someone will splash sauce on it or something like that. That I understand. But the way you're being so tyrannical about it is the problem. Arguments between party members outside of roleplay would be resolved by me giving the definite ruling. If you do not like it, fuck off and go back home. Well, let me just say that if you're going to be the deciding factor of all arguments, even if you're not personally involved, dude, you have a power trip. You're having one. Calm down, little boy. Here, have a cracker. Like, dude, if arguments happen between party members, like, let's say, like, X is not a fan of what Y is doing, and they argue about it, you can't just say, oh yeah, X is right, and move on. You gotta be able to have, like, a consensus. You gotta have reasoning. You gotta have understanding. Because if not, resentment is gonna be held. And that's gonna be a whole nother issue you're gonna have to deal with on top of everything else you've already put into place. 33. I do not give a fuck what they did on Critical Role or what that one guy on Reddit said, or if you think that's all make-believe so you can do whatever you want. The world I run has an intentional rulings and lore I created specifically for it. That is fair. I understand you made lore and you want them to be able to be part of that lore. But you also got to understand that players are a part of your lore. If not, you can go write a book. Because the whole thing is it's player intermission that causes the story to happen. If not, if it's just happening for the sake of happening without them being there, what's the point of them being there? That's the whole point. 34. Every single person in this chat is having debuffs applied to their characters that should have occurred a long time ago. This will be specific to characters. So what you're saying is that you're debuffing a lot of the characters because they're too strong because you made them too strong. Either that or you feel like you just got to power them down to make sure you can handle them. Why not just make a new campaign if that's the case? Like, seriously, if you can't power down the characters, and you have to power them down and make the players feel like they lost something, then what's the point? If you don't bring your character sheet, you don't play. That one I understand because you don't want people to be pulling stuff out of their ass, but you gotta be understanding of it. Sometimes shit happens. But it doesn't mean they can't play. If they remember their modifiers, or if you just give them a base modifier, which I would do would be a +2, then I would say they still could play. It really depends on what you have in store for your players. If you don't bring dice, borrow some. I mean, that's fine. There's no issue with that. I mean, just borrow some dice. I'm pretty sure your residential dice goblin will have it. Your residential dice goblin will have you covered. He will have you covered. No worries. Close your fucking mouth. If you don't have dice, you can easily borrow some. That's not an issue. I don't even know why this is here. When we play D&D, I'm not your friend. That doesn't mean you treat me like an enemy during the game. It means I'm no longer being nice. Then why are you playing at all? Like, dude, these are your friends. Even if you are running the game, it does... Oh, if you're not my friend, you're my enemy kind of situation is what you are brewing here. Through your own rules. It's your own fault that they are thinking that way. You gotta do something different, man. 38. If you treat me poorly in any way, shape, or form after, during, or before the game due to something that happened in game, you're out. If you cannot separate game from reality, I think you're a fucking moron, and I have little time to deal with that energy. You are the main cause of that issue. Like, seriously. The whole situation is your fault. And you can't tell me otherwise, because from what I've read thus far, you are the problem. You, the DM, are the problem. Because you don't want them to have fun, you don't want to be nice to your players, you don't want to do anything that will get them a reason to play, and you don't want them to have something that will give them a reason to stay. That is your own fault. And yeah, they might treat you poorly, because they feel like something's unfair, or the rules you're making are too obscene to actually be properly used. But dude, that's your own fault. You gotta give players reasons. Because if you don't, they're just gonna leave. 39. You will submit your spell list daily in-game, and if you do not give me a spell list each in-game day, you will not be allowed to cast a single spell or cantrip in combat. I do not trust you guys not to use this against me. You know what? Fine. If that's the way you want to play it, make sure you write down all your enemies' spell lists as well and give them to us. I know the DM's supposed to have like, all pertinent information and stuff like that, but the way you're making it is so tyrannical that it's not really going to be fun to play. It's a lot of bookkeeping that you just don't want to do. 40. If you do not mark off spell slots in your spell slots, if you do not mark off your spell slots and say something like, I remember where I'm at, as the way to justify it, I'll simply fail your spell, deal half your health and damage to you, and say you have no spells to cast for the rest of the day. What is this, magical kickback? What is this, recoil? Like, dude. Yeah, that's annoying as a DM for me to see that and hear that a lot of the time. I understand that, but that's not the way to handle it. You just remind them to write it down, because they lots of times they're just excited to cast a spell and they forget, especially in the 1 minute time limit that you have given them. I'm just saying, dude, it's your own fault. 41. If you break literally anything, you can buy me a replacement that day or do not attend until you do. That one I can somewhat understand, but don't be so rigid about it. If you complain about the choice of my music, I will fully expect you to bring a whole playlist next session or shut the fuck up. The players aren't going to do all the work for you. You're the DM. You got to do the work. If not, what are you doing? Yes, if they have suggestions for music and you think it works, then yeah, go for it. But if you want them to have any constructive criticism in the game, or any constructive anything in the game, you got to be able to loosen up some of these rules a bit. 43. Cannot stress this enough how little I care about how you feel about my rulings from now on. Oh, and 44, I'm never just threatening you, I am promising you. Alright. I don't even think I have to even address the final two ones, because they're literally just saying, hey, if you don't like my rulings, fuck you in everything that you stand for. But that's what I'm saying overall. This whole list is just the own DM's fault for breeding an environment that is that's so toxic. Like, I understand, like, some of the rulings, but all of them together just makes a huge, huge, huge problem, because you never know what you're going to find out and what you're going to mess up on until it happens and the DM either leaves or you're kicked out. It doesn't matter either or, because either way, you're not having fun. The way this DM plays, I can't imagine you'd be having fun. And that's what D&D is. It's all about having fun. And if you can't have fun, what's the point? No D&D is better than bad D&D. That is something I have learned from playing for a long time. Well, guys, that's the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed with a little bit of an extra of my girlfriend in there. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you do, feel free to leave a like, favorite, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon. See ya.